lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the...
Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. Yes, this morning. Fantastic cloudy day is out here. I don't know what it's like with you, but yeah, it's a fantastically cloudy day, as you would expect. Just this time of year, isn't it? Anyway, lots to talk about this morning. I'm going to take the positives from the game last night. Yep, I am going to take all the positives from the game last night, and I'm going to talk about what Brendan Rodgers discussed at the press conference last night, which I thought was interesting. And just check this. Anyway, lots to talk about this morning. Just do this just to get the screen. Use the screen there. There's a screen. Yeah. So for me, there's lots of positives to take from last night. Celtic attacked and Celtic defended well in Europe. Celtic managed to get a point in Europe, and it shows how far the team have come. Yes, it does. It shows how far the team have come. The fact that we are bemoaning the fact that we didn't get a win. Now, people will say, look, it was almost a B team that Zagreb had out last night. And it doesn't matter. When it comes to Champions League football, I mean, they were playing for the point. And it was up to Celtic to try and break them down. And Brendan Rodgers, I'm going to tell you why I think that Brendan Rodgers will now be planning Celtic's next level moves to level up in when it comes to European football. If I think back to this time last year, he bemoaned the fact that we weren't good enough in the final third. He did say that Celtic weren't good enough in the final third. It's something that he said last night also, and it's something that Callum McGregor and Greg Taylor said also, that we didn't take our chances in the final third. And I think we all seen that. It was all laid bare last night that we weren't good enough in the final third. When you look, I mean, Adam had a chance. Their defender done fantastically well. You've got to give it to their defence for making the defender for making that block. Because if he didn't make the block, it was a goal. The downside of it, and I will say this, is that Adam Ida didn't try to get in front of the defender. If you think back to the way that Henrik Larsson would play, Henrik Larsson would come away behind the defender. He would come behind the defender and then he would make a dart and run across the front of him to get to the ball before the defender. Adam Ida was just waiting on the ball coming to him. And I think that's the downside of this Celtic front line. They're not attacking the front post as much as what I think that they could. And ultimately, I think Brendan Rodgers, and we'll look back, take the parallels from this time last year. And Brendan talking about last year, at the exact same time, said that we weren't good enough in the final third. Last night he said we weren't good enough in the final third. What did Brendan do come the transfer window? Well, he went out and got Nico Kuhn, and he went out and got Adam Ida. I expect Brendan to make moves in the transfer window coming up. I expect him to make moves to make the team better. Now, even if it's a player that comes in on loan, to make us better in the midfield, because I think ultimately we do need a bit more experience when it comes to the Champions League level. It's okay going out and buying Arne Engels, you've got to remember, Arne Engels is an £11 million project player. He is still a project player. We're putting an awful lot of emphasis on Engels, and he's only 20 years old. At Celtic, when people come through the under 20, the B team at Celtic, and they're 20-year-old, they're getting put out on loan. So the fact that we've got an Engels, and he is still a project player, right? He's a player that's got a lot of growth as a player. But going back to what Brendan Rodgers said, this time last year and again last night, it was the final third that let us down. So I fully expect Brendan Rodgers in the next transfer window, and he'll already be planning. We know that he's already planning for the transfer window, and I think that's what's the positive that we'll take. You know, and Brendan Rodgers said in the interview last night, he said, look, it shows how far that this team have come when we're disappointed with a draw away from home in Europe. If it was a draw any other year away from home in Europe, and we were sitting on the points tally that we were sitting, we would say that this has been a successful campaign so far. The couple of games still to go in the Champions League, I think it has been a successful campaign so far. I did say before a ball was kicked that I thought that Celtic would get 12 points, I should have put a bet on that, because it looks like that we are going to finish on 12 points. If we can get anything down in Birmingham at Aston Villa, come the end of the sort of the league format of the campaign, it will be a bonus. I think that Brendan Rodgers will be able to get something away from home. I think we could even sneak a win. Aston Villa will not sit back and defend the way that Zagreb did last night, and I think there's those positives. The next game is a must-win game, as always. The game at Celtic Park against Young Boys is a fantastic opportunity for Celtic to get that points tally right up there. And anyway, before we talk about anything else, I just have to remind you that we are doing the Boxing Day Live. We're doing a Boxing Day Live for the Celtic Foundation, raising money for the Celtic Foundation and their Christmas appeal. It's going fantastically well so far. We're sitting on 53%, sitting on £1,065. And then there's also the gift aid that's sitting on top of that. So it's a fantastic amount of money that we've raised so far. Lots of time to go until the 26th. Lots of time for people to donate their spare change into the fund, and let's see if we can get it up to the £2,000 on the day, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, when we look at the players coming off the pitch last night, the players knew themselves that it was a massively missed opportunity. Callum McGregor looked dejected after the game. You've got to say that Greg Taylor didn't look too happy, and Callum McGregor is a player. He's played 100 games for Celtic in Europe, and he will know himself that there was no better opportunity than last night. And when you think back to some of the players that he's played alongside over the years for Celtic in his 100 games in the Champions League for Celtic, he will know inside himself. He will know that was a massive, massive opportunity that we had last night to get that win in the Champions League, to get us further up the table. We could have been sitting in a fantastic position today, but we're not, and we've got to get on with it. And we have to really take the positives. And I think that Brendan Rodgers, the positive that he will take is he'll turn around to Paul Tisdale, and he'll have a meeting with Paul Tisdale when there's no one else at Lennoxtown, and the two of them will sit and they'll discuss the targets that they have, the type of player that they've got in mind, and the ones that they're going to go to the board with and go, this is why we need these players. Brendan Rodgers can go, will tell Paul Tisdale, and Paul Tisdale is basically the go-between between him and the board, and saying, this is the reasons that we need these players. Brendan Rodgers can sit and go, right, I want this player, and he's £7 million, and he's £10 million, and the board's going to go, well, wait a minute, that's a bit much. But the good thing about Celtic just now is that we've got Paul Tisdale in, and he can go, well, this is the reasons. He can see it from the business point of view, and he can see it from the football perspective as well. He'll argue Brendan's point for the football perspective, but he'll also give the board something to think about with bringing in a certain type of player that will bring in more money to Celtic. And that is ultimately what the board will sit down and look at. The board will sit down and go, right, what is the financial projections of bringing in this player, ultimately. That's the way that the board look at things just now. It's the way that Celtic look at it, and the club has run fantastically well. I think the only downside of the club just now is we've got money sitting in the bank. Why don't we just go out and spend that money and give it to one of the players that's coming through the youth system? When you look at Daniel Cummins, fantastic goal yesterday. Absolutely fantastic goal. Would Daniel Cummins have made a difference in that game yesterday? I'm going to say yes, and this is why I'm going to say yes. Brendan Rodgers will be sitting looking at the players that came on yesterday, and we got the deal of the century in the summer. We got the deal of the century. When we got Luke McCowan for £1 million, that was the steal of the summer. It was absolutely steal of the summer, getting Luke McCowan for £1 million. If we can go out and why not spend decent money and just give Daniel Kelly what he wants and get him into that first team? When you look at the way that Luke McCowan played last night, he makes the difference. When you've got teams that play, and you've got to love the question that the Croatians asked Brendan Rodgers last night about the players, were they taken off because they're Japanese? It tells you all you want to know about Croatia. I mean, people said on the live last night, I thought Croatia was a safe country. Croatians, Ukrainians, Bulgarians are all cut in the same cloth. That's all I'll say with that, because I don't want to upset anybody that might support the channel that it may come from these countries. But they're all cut from the same cloth. And the fact that he come out and said, was it because there were Japanese that were taken off? No, Brendan said. He said, look, it's not the first time that Japanese players have been taken off, and it'll not be the last time that Japanese players are getting off. Brendan knew exactly how to answer that question. But when you look at the players that are coming through the system, Daniel Kelly would have made a difference in that game last night. If Brendan is looking for a player that can play on the wings and play through the middle, Daniel Kelly's your man. There has to be something wrong. It must be the case that obviously Brendan either doesn't like him as a player or there's some kind of attitude problem. I have no idea. Slav countries are the same. Yeah, they are, Richard. They're all the same. They're very backwards. They're very backwards in their viewing. I know quite a few Bulgarians over here, and they're pretty much as racist and bigoted as you can get, and homophobic, and you name it. It's quite shocking the way that they are in this day and age. Anyway, it's all about Celtic. Celtic blew it. Zagreb were there for the taking, says Pat. I'm going to listen to... We're going to go all out American TV morning show now. We're going to go all American. We're going to go all American breakfast show. Yes, we are. I'm not putting on an American accent, but let's meet the Schmeichels.
We're going to go to both of the Schmeichels, Casper and Peter, right now. We have been waiting for this moment. I am so happy this is happening.
Yeah, the Schmeichels, yes! Finally got them!
Meet the Schmeichels.
Happy? Well, yeah, reasonably happy.
Well, Peter, what did you think? How did Casper play tonight?
We are happy.
You were proud tonight, were you?
No, I mean, that was... Yeah, I mean, that save from Pjanic.
I
can't remember his name. Well, it was a good header, and Casper was moving one way, it was going the other way, and he got his hand to it, and it stayed at 0-0. And you can argue that's what a goalkeeper is there for, but in a game where that absolutely nothing happened for the whole game really in that end, other than kicking goal kicks and passing the ball out to the centre halves, then that is really good going. And what you don't see on the pictures is the pitch was not very good, but it was really, really cold. So it's just one of them games where that might just happen towards the end, and then you lose 1-0, but you saved it.
Yeah, I mean,
are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, like you said, it was a difficult game. We couldn't really get our creativity at the top of the pitch going, and there's lots of reasons for that, no excuses, but difficult game, an opponent that played man-to-man all the way through, and we didn't manage to create enough in the end.
Were you surprised about how they approached the game? In view of their next two games is Arsenal away and Milan at home with 7 points before the game, that they were that sort of cautious and that defensive, really?
No, I mean, we expected a man-to-man game, and every time you play man-to-man, it's obviously about beating the first press and getting through that. But it was difficult, like I said, it was difficult on this pitch to play one touch. I think the key when you are playing against man-to-man is that you can play one touch and you can get round corners fast. But I think it's a good sign that we've got to a point where we've drawn 0-0 away from home in Champions League, we're not too happy with it.
Casper, can I interject? Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
I just wanted to ask about this new format of the Champions League.
Here comes the wanker's wanker, Carragher.
And you're in a great position. Do you think this new format has given Celtic and other sort of clubs of your sort of calibre a better chance in terms of going forward?
Well, personally, I've been very positively, not surprised, but I'm quite happy with the format. I think it keeps things exciting. From a personal point of view, you get to play a much bigger variety of teams, it gives us a chance. I quite enjoy it, to be honest.
Peter, before you guys were live with us, we
Where's
heard...
Micah, by the way?
Mike is in Italy.
We got a bone to pick with Micah. See, we're finally doing this.
Well,
No?
unfortunately, he's not here to
Where is
answer
he?
back, but you can pick the bone.
Well, we've got to wait. We've got to do this again. Make sure you go through, because we're going to do this again, and Margaret's got to be in the studio.
Yeah, we'll have to wait.
Fight.
Yeah. I fancy Casper. I fancy Casper.
Okay, so we will come back to that at some point, hopefully,
you, mate.
further down in the Champions League. I guess one of the questions I was going to ask before we came to you, we heard you guys talking in Danish. Now, I don't pretend to speak Danish, but I felt like Jamie's name was mentioned, and then there was some Danish talk, and I just wondered.
They're saying there's that wanker Carragher.
about Jamie, Peter. Did you?
Don't ball it now. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
No, I said that you said earlier in the program that Casper was your friend. I warned you about questions, and you said, no, Casper is my friend. And I said, but don't worry, Jamie's going to behave nicely. That's what I said.
I've got one more question for Casper. And the question is, on this show, we always ask the players who come who their favourite
Hasn't Casper won more than Carragher in his entire career?
person on the show is. Now, at the moment, Casper, me and your dad have never had a vote of anybody. Is that going to change tonight?
Oh, yeah. I did. I had the cartoon, by the way.
Oh, the cartoon.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Dora the Explorer.
So he's had one, yeah.
Yeah. Dora the Explorer.
Come on,
She
Casper.
picked me.
Casper, come on.
Yeah, and that's got more value than any other player picking you guys. Got to be Cade. It's got to be Cade.
He was.
Yeah.
No, he was a bit of a tool. No, never picked Micah.
Pick Micah.
He never picked. Do you know what, Mike? Do you know how annoying Micah was in school? Like, we used to do college together when we were at City, and we got nothing done because of Micah.
You should save all your ammunition to when he's actually in the studio.
But I don't think that surprises anyone that Micah wasn't paying attention in
So who is the favourite?
Well, since it's Christmas then, and you know it's the season of giving, I'll have to give Jamie it then.
What the fuck? Meet the Caspers. So that's our little bit of that's a little bit of American TV breakfast for you this morning. Absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Anyway, let's jump into the comment section before we finish up this morning. And it is an early live, which is always good to get as many people on live in this morning. First up was Dave Hislop. Paul McCune was in the house. Hazel. Anthony was asking how many games was that when Jimmy McGrory was manager? None. I'm far too young for that nonsense, Tony. Richard says Hatate was shite last night, giving the ball far too easy, giving it away. Expect Brendan Rodgers to bring in an experienced midfield player in the next window. If not the next window, definitely the summer. I think Brendan will make moves now to bring in some experience within that midfield to help out Callum McGregor. I think that it's okay bringing in the younger players, and we've got a lot of younger players in that midfield, but sometimes, and especially at Champions League level, I think that we need someone that has the European experience. Rio Hatate doesn't have it, and I've said way before last night, and this isn't a reaction to last night. I've been saying it for months now that I think Rio Hatate will be the one who'll be sold in the summer. I think he'll be sold for around about 15 million. I don't think that we're going to get the 20 odd million that we'd got for any other player. I think he's done himself an injustice, but I still stand by my words for the last couple of months that Rio Hatate, if Celtic are going to sell any player next summer, I think Rio Hatate, he's on the Bolton Lake and his number's up, and Brendan Rodgers is standing saying, "Oh, Hatate, your time's up. Get after Bolton Lake and you come." So yeah, Anthony says, "Born a Tim, will die a Tim." Yep. I'm just going to jump through some of these. Magnus, I hope you're okay. You're waiting on heart surgery. I hope that's okay for you. What is it you're getting done? Is it a valve replacement? Good morning, Baz says Johnson Aries is coming in from North London. Lank is in the house. I wouldn't be. Lanky says he wouldn't be surprised if Rio goes in January. I think that if there's a bid comes in for him, there's not been a bid come in for him yet, and this is Lanky. This is the issue that we have at Celtic. There's not been a bid came in for Rio Hatate. It's okay, Rio Hatate coming out and saying in public to the media back home that he wants to leave Celtic and he wants to play at a higher level domestically. That's well documented that he said that. But there's nobody came in for him, and it's a case of, well, his agent or Celtic are going to have to say to his agent, look, I think it's time that you looked for another club. So anyway, Vincent O'Brien says the last two games are going to be tough. Nah, I think the young boys game will be the easier game out of the two, and I think we may be able to get something away from home. I just think that Brendan Rodgers, he knows the English game inside out, he knows Villa inside out. It all depends whether the Celtic players turn up. Last night was a disappointing from the player perspective. The players knew that they didn't do enough last night, and there's small margins. Small margins make all the difference. We could have easily won by a couple of goals last night. On a better day, Celtic are scoring 2 or 3 goals and we're going through. That's us qualified for the next round. Easily. There's no way that we're not qualifying. You win that game last night and you're qualifying. I did call it a draw before the ball was kicked, and I was right. It was a game, a draw. Listen, it does show you, and Brendan Rodgers has said it. Chris Sutton said it also on Twitter. He said, good point and clean sheet. Maybe feeling in many ways, though, it was an opportunity missed, says Chris Sutton. Dominated the ball, but lacked a bit of quality in the final third. It seems to be a reoccurring thing at this time of the year, and especially in the Champions League. And that gives Brendan Rodgers ammunition when he goes to the board. And he goes to the board and he says, look, this is the player that I want. And this adds the quality to the team. Now, I did say, look, we're bringing in Arne Engels. I said a few months ago, we brought in Arne Engels for 11 million. They will value Arne Engels in the future at around about 25 to 30 million, hopefully, in about 2 or 3 years' time. Don't be surprised if in 3 years' time we've got the average cost of the squad is around about 10 to 15 million. And that's where Brendan Rodgers wants to take us. And Brendan Rodgers knows that if we want to progress in European football, we have to go down that road of getting more experienced and better players in. The days of bringing in Celtic bringing in players of 1 million and 2 million and trying to make them into £30 million players, they're only going to come along once in a lifetime. Henrik Larsson came along once in a lifetime, what we got him for. Matt O'Reilly, getting him for 1.5 million, we're not going to do that anytime soon again. That's never going to happen anytime soon. You know, getting Jota, we got Jota for 6 million, we turned him over for 25. You could say that's a bit more realistic when it comes to the Celtic transfer model. But anyway, Chris Sutton went on to say it shows how far this team have come. Feeling disappointed. A point may be, but we're feeling disappointed. And I think it is because we know that we can play better. The manager has done it extremely well with the funds that he's been given. And people will say in Scotland, but he's outspending everyone by 20, 30%, 300% or whatever. You've still got to beat who's in front of you on a domestic level. We're in the Champions League. This is the big boys club. We want the club to do as well as it can. We're on a fantastic amount of points. If there's a lot of people said that, look, 12 to 15 points was a minimum at the start of the season. I said at the beginning of the season, I said right at the start of the Champions League campaign that 12 points would be a fantastic number to achieve. Hindsight is a fine thing in football, and having the ability to look back at games where we maybe could have done a little bit better. Last night was one of those games. Last night was a game where if we just put in a 5% extra by some of the players, Brendan Rodgers did come out and say it, and Schmeichels said it wasn't. The pitch didn't allude to the one-touch pass. You couldn't see how bad the pitch was on the telly, but they said the pitch wasn't good enough for the one-touch pass. I still think that we could have sped things up a bit. Anyway, Paul Hogan says, if we were to play a game like that again 2 or 3 times, we win. There's no luck on the night. Yep. Liam says, past 2 games in the Champions League have felt like 4 points dropped instead of 2 points gained. Frustrating to watch when we have the pace and we know the players that we can finish. Brendan Rodgers will go out and he will want a midfielder that can take control of the game, take the game by the scruff of the neck, and he does want a left-sided attacker. We have players of the ability that Adam Ida, he needs to up his game. Will he go out and get another striker? I think that Brendan Rodgers will. I think Brendan Rodgers has the right to now go, look, we need a different type of striker. We've got 2 different types of strikers as it is. Do we need a third choice to put a little bit of pressure? Because let's face it, there's no pressure on Kyogo. There's no pressure on Adam Ida. There's not that third choice giving Brendan that little bit of edge. They both know that they're either going to be playing or they're going to be on the bench. If we've got a third choice striker in the team, a bit like what Martin O'Neill did, when Martin O'Neill brought in Chris Sutton and John Hartson, he knew that he had Henrik Larsson up there, and it was then up to John Hartson and Chris Sutton to fight it out to see who was going to play up against with Henrik Larsson. We don't have that at Celtic just now. Having just the 2 options for a team of Celtic's calibre and what we're trying to do in the Champions League just isn't enough. It isn't putting enough pressure on Adam Ida. It's not putting enough pressure on Kyogo to just get them to perform that little bit better, to get that extra 5% out of each player. If you get that extra little 5% out of each player, it will make the team better, and it gives Celtic that little bit of an edge, that little bit of a cutting edge that sometimes I think that we're missing just now, because there isn't that third external pressure on both of them. Noodle says midfield was shite last night, Calmack included, holding the ball for too long, many passes, no vision, bravery from anyone. Yeah, and I think that comes to the way that Rio Hatate was playing in front of Callum McGregor, not making the right spaces for himself, and then Rio Hatate turning round and trying to pass the ball 5 yards to nobody there. I mean, just not looking up at all. Hatate was useless. Sell him in January, says the truth teller. Paradise found, says morning Tims all around the world. Still in my tagline. I'm going to jump through some of these. A lot of people saying Hatate was bad. Pork Chop Express saying McCowan isn't the answer, guys. I've seen that on Saturday. Too much clamouring for Luke to play regular. Wait until he's settled, lads, before piling on the pressure. I don't think it's about piling on pressure, Pork Chop. I think it's about knowing the quality that he has and knowing what it costs Celtic to bring him in was a bargain. And is give the lad credit where credit is due. That if people think that he's actually better than Rio Hatate, who we spent a lot more money on, anyway. And a lot of people slagging off R.I.P. Jim Crockwell, Celtic legend. Oh, there we go. I didn't know about that. If we play like that on Sunday, we're in trouble. Chill pill. I don't think that we will play like that on Sunday because they won't sit back. The Sevconians won't sit back. I've got a runny nose this morning. Rangers won't sit back, that's a certainty. They'll come out and try and attack. That was a disgraceful performance. That's all down to Rodgers' tactics, says James. Interesting. Having a dig at Brendan Rodgers about his tactics last night. John, we're listening to it because it was our goalkeeper. It was our goalkeeper from last night. Anyway, that's us done and dusted for this morning. Thank you to everyone who has commented this morning. Johnny Kenny should be back at Celtic, and Blindman can see that he'll give you something different. And goals, says the truth teller. Well, that's something that Brendan Rodgers will need to think about in the next couple of weeks, because he will be back at Celtic. And he'll be back to see if he can get into the team. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party.